All right, here we go.
We're live.
Good morning, everybody. John Sviokla here from Gen AI Insights. Come to you from beautiful Marshfield, Massachusetts, founded in 1640, an old town here. I'm happy to be here with our AI analysts. We have a lot of exciting news today that we're going to go through, and we're sponsored by CustomGPT.ai, which just recently had a fantastic review that puts them their RAG capability above some of the big models. So good news for them, and they continue to grow at a pace and make it easy for people to get access to large language models. So thanks for that sponsorship. Yeah, today we've got all kinds of interesting stuff going on. We have Anthropic dropped a new set of models, which looks fantastic. We've got some what not to do's from TurboTax and Wix in terms of how to add additional capability through generative AI, but maybe fumbling it a bit. We've got some stuff in terms of talking robots happening, as well as some new capabilities to both simulate tasks at work, especially difficult tasks around the creation of, giving people difficult feedback and negotiation and so forth, as well as some security issues. So a lot to cover today. And we are going to start off with our own Tim Andrews, who's going to talk to us about meeting Claude and the new capabilities that they have from small to large. So with that, Tim, start us off.
So Claude, most people in this world will know, is founded by two a brother and sister team, ex-OpenAI folks, and has been very well funded by the major players and is the primary alternative, I would say, at this point, certainly in the United States, to OpenAI's ChatGPT. They dropped their 3.0 models. There are three of them. You can sort of think of them as inexpensive, medium, and expensive, and with processing capabilities going up according to price. So these are going to be charged for. If you use Claude's free interface, the chat interface they provide on the web, you'll get the medium version. So to get the expensive version, as with ChatGPT from OpenAI, you'll have to pay a monthly fee or use the API. It looks great from the initial benchmarks. We'll have to see as it goes out and gets real world testing, because the benchmarks, as we know, are still early stage. But it surpasses every model, including OpenAI's ChatGPT, on pretty much every benchmark, and quite a bit on code generation. So it'll be interesting to see, again, the difference between benchmarking and practice, as we say. So it's certainly going to create some stir given the benchmarking and the fact that it's already a fairly visible model, and that they have three models, so there'll be some price opportunities here. They've kept the 200K context window, so that's a very large context window. They say it can handle 1 million token context window, but they have not made that available for use to the public as of right now.
So what's your rating?
Yes, what's your rating? EIO, baby. Huh?
Waking up late today. Essential. I think this is essential. This is one of the two major models that are out there, and the fact that it has surpassed, this is the first model on any set of benchmarks that surpassed ChatGPT, OpenAI 4.0, the high-end model of OpenAI's ChatGPT. So this is the first one. And again, particularly on code generation, it was way better on the benchmarks. And we'll see, because that's a big market already.
Yeah, one thing to note, from my perspective, I agree it's essential. They didn't pass on all benchmarks, right? They chose several benchmarks to portray that it does surpass, and reasoning and math and coding, as you said, seem to be the three, which is obviously like very good.
Yeah.
But what it says to me is like we're still going to be bouncing around between various models to do certain things, right? Like
Yep.
I use Perplexity for research because it's better for grabbing citations and very valid research sources. I use ChatGPT, for a lot of things, and also image generation, right? This still doesn't do image generation. now you've got this one, maybe that'll do better on math and reasoning. And, you wonder, is any ever going to do it all, right? Or we're going to move to this model where it seems like we'll move anyway, where you're getting a special model for certain things, right? So
that's a great question.
Well, in most cases, the technology gets to a point where it reaches a threshold that's acceptable, and then there are usually a couple of players that dominate. We may sort of already be there, but it's early days to make that strong a conclusion. But I'm interested because when I did some programming using both ChatGPT and Claude, probably 6 or 7 months ago, Claude was not in the same ballpark. It just couldn't generate anything like the code from ChatGPT, or even other code generators. And so I'll be interested to see how this one goes.
Awesome. Other important things to talk about here, Tanya or Adam?
Yeah, I'll just throw in one thing. It's worth noting that both the free model, which I love the names, it's Haiku, Sonnet, and Opus. Like, how big is the volume of the body of work? It's really clever that way. They're very easy to remember. But with Haiku, which is free, and Sonnet, which is sort of the mid-range, even Sonnet, I think, is 10 times cheaper than GPT-4, and it's getting pretty close in terms of competitiveness. Even the free model is significantly better than GPT 3.5. So this is definitely putting the coals to the iron, or whatever they say. Putting the feet to the fire for OpenAI to really put the pressure on them and make sure that they stay competitive in the space.
Yep.
One thing I'd like to note is it's just breathtaking the amount of innovation that's happened in the last 12 months. We've talked repeatedly about that the real game is an intergalactic war, cloud war between AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure. And I think we're just getting started with the improvement of speeds and feeds. And a year from now, it's going to be up a whole nother level. So it's a breathtaking amount of innovation that's coming to marketplaces, and it's essential that these AI leaders need to know this, because more is coming, and the ROI that you see now is going to be way better next year, and model switchability is going to be critical.
Yeah, and also, last note, Amazon already added this to Bedrock. They did it right away.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's fascinating that in addition to capability, the pricing model and the prices, both the model and absolute price, are moving around a lot. So phenomenal. No question, essential. Awesome. And Ankash, apologies, I hopped over you there. I was so excited to get to Claude. So if you could get us to the next article, that would be great, Ankash.
Yeah, actually, he's not feeling well, so he asked us to take that over, and I was going to
do it. Great, not a problem.
Can we not skip over the needle in the haystack? It would be good to talk about.
Yes, yeah, that one is good.
I stuck that in there because I was like, this is gonna. I want to hear the debate on this one.
On the fact that the model knew the researchers were testing it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Let Ankash introduce it, guys.
Ankash doesn't want to introduce it because he's sick. So
okay. Go ahead, David. You want to introduce it? Go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, there was a post on Twitter from an engineer at Anthropic who said that while they were testing it, they did a needle in the haystack test where they basically put in like one line of knowledge that has nothing to do with all the other ones, and deeply embedded. And they challenged it to answer a question that could only be answered by that piece of knowledge. And it did. And it noted, hey, this doesn't look like anything else in my knowledge base. Either you're testing me or this is like a mistake or something. So it sent, the internet a buzz about, are these language models starting to have emergent capabilities more and more?
Yeah, metacognition.
Right. It is a meta layer of thinking. It's thinking about the topic that was proposed to it, which was find the needle in the haystack. And it's saying, gosh, needles aren't usually in haystacks like this, or at least this needle's unusual in this haystack. So that is a level of quote unquote reasoning. So, it's interesting. It just shows you how far you can go with parrots and statistics.
Well, and I
I
think
thought it was
it's so relevant because last week when we were talking about the issues, right, that Google experienced and some of the other big ones, OpenAI as well, how important testing is, right? And so what I liked about this article is that while they point out that, hey, it was able to figure out that the pizza line was completely out of scope given everything else that was around it. At the end, the article says, yeah, but we got to do more realistic testing. Meaning it shouldn't be a pizza line around an article that's all about coding and programming. I mean, that is just obvious that it's out of place. What happens if there is something that's more related, and how do we detect that? So I don't know, this idea of testing, and we've been talking about it for months now, right? I mean, that's a field in itself. Like, how do we catch and how do we make sure that before we roll out something that the quality testing is there, to meet compliance, to meet security and so many other things. So I love this article. Thank you, Ankash.
I do think testing is a huge and deep thing and evolving, obviously, in the context of this. On the issue of metacognition, I would take issue with you, Tim. I don't think it's metacognition. I think what it is, unless you define metacognition as something it already does, because I just look at we're thinking about it. I think that's too anthropomorphic, right? This thing is already tracking individuals. Huh?
You're right. Yeah, I agree. But go ahead.
I mean, it's taking I was talking to Paul about this morning, and the whole you can imagine if you feed the LLM, IP addresses and timing and location and the profile of the person interrogating it, it could interpolate that. Oh, okay, given what's been going on behaviorally by these dimensions, they're testing me now. You know what I mean? I mean, that would be a normal thing you would get from the LLM in the semantics. But anyway, so I think we got to be really careful about as we add dimensions of data, it's going to come up with amazing inferences. But as you know, I think it's already thinking. It's just not. It's thinking. It's thinking the way a plane flies. It's different from a bird. It's different from us. And I think
well, I would say, right. Well, I think that's why I said you can get a long way with parrots and statistics, which was probably too obtuse. Yes, it's not. It doesn't have a model, an underlying model by which it inferred and induced, if you will, that this is a weird construction, and either it's a test or it's a mistake.
Yeah, I would put it differently.
Lots of statistics, and so I agree. The question of there's a longer discussion here. The worry, if I have a worry, is this is all abstract. This is all symbols, stored in bits on computers. It is not the real world. And the question is, how accurately does it reflect the real world if it gets no feedback from the real world other than these symbols?
Yeah, and it's a matter of what it was trained on, right? If it was trained on data that delivered information about how you train systems, coding, whatever, then it's only just pulling from its own database, right? If it had no knowledge of that kind of stuff whatsoever, then you could say, okay, this this thing has learned something on its own that is pretty unbelievable, right? But you've got to imagine it was trained on material that kind of hinted that was a possibility, right?
Well, I think it's actually a different issue, which is what is human reality and what is machine reality. But I think we should table that for the moment.
Yes.
See, that's why I put this article in here. We'll have to debate.
So I think we're giving it an essential.
Essential it is. All right. Next. Thank you for stopping us from hopping over that, Adam. Okay, TurboTax.
That's right. Somebody offered a relatively scathing review of TurboTax H&R Block, and I feel like maybe there was one other tax aid software that they reviewed, and noted that it gave wrong answers about half the time. And then when the person, this author, shared the data with the two institutions, they went back and made some fixes, yet still delivered the wrong answer a quarter of the time. So, Luda, interested on what your reaction was to this.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we should rate it as important. This is what not to do, for sure. it seemed like both companies rushed to introduce this capability that seemed to be really half cooked, if even cooked at all. So I don't know how they tested it. It's really amazing that they can be so wrong, and so much in the space where the consequences to the people who are doing the taxes do matter. And I just feel it's so irresponsible, and just don't even know where were these companies to put it out like that. I think all of that, those people should be fired. I'm beyond myself. I haven't tried it. I just started on my taxes, but I haven't tried it. I'm a hogger, so I'm only do it on my desktop. I have a desktop version, so I'm not sure I can easily access those assistants. But I will try and do it, look at it for myself. But it is, from reading it, my hair stood up, and I feel that they shouldn't have done it.
Luna, now you know why I assigned you this thing. I do it prompt sense of moral outrage.
I would argue for essential, and here's why. There's two levels to this. One, agree, and also if you noted the responses from the PR people from both of these were completely indignant, right? I mean, they said, well, we say it's a test on there, and they can access the information elsewhere. And I just thought that was a horrible way to handle this. So besides this being a message to AI leaders, like, hey, guys, like, make sure your product is like fully baked before you feed it to your consumers. I also worry that the more these incidents happen, right, the more people are going to reject using AI. And that's not going to help any company, right? So that's what makes me move this to essential. Like, this is kind of not just you're tarnishing your company image, you're kind of tarnishing your whole ability to execute an AI strategy within your company by doing things like this.
Yeah, totally.
Well, and that's
I will
what we discussed.
respectfully. Oh, go ahead, Tanya.
I was going to say,
I
I think we
any other
discussed
really
this.
important stuff. Tanya, I was just going to say that just anything. I want to move us forward a little bit because we're running low on time. Anything super important to say about this one?
No, the only thing I was going to add is that what Dave is saying is so critical for companies to really, when they decide which AI use case to go after, pick something that is not going to damage your brand out of the gate. Yeah, like choose something internal, small. Make your teams learn what is AI, how do we develop, how do we test, how do we, before you go out into something that your customers are going to use.
Great point. And you come out EIO, where are you?
Oh, on this one, I think it's important. Definitely important.
Okay, we're going to go for important. That's as important. Watch out for your own incompetence. Make sure you start in the right place. All right.
John, if I could just throw in one quick point on the heels of the Air Canada news from last week, people got to be really careful about this stuff. I mean, when you're talking about bad tax advice, that's going to be a lawsuit very quickly in the United States.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. That, and for those who weren't on the last one, Air Canada actually had to go ahead and pay a discount that was improperly suggested by the robot. So in Canada, at least, you're held accountable for your robot's bad advice. So might be the same here.
Yes. By the way, they do say that they will support you if you get audited, and that's nice of them. But like, it's still a pain to get audited.
It's irresponsible, totally.
Well, this is
So
obviously
I for irresponsible, not for important.
All right. All right. It is. Next. We're heading into ChatGPT reading its answers out loud.
Yeah, I have nothing more to say about this. That's what it does. And honestly, I was kind of confused because mine's been reading out loud to me for quite a while on my mobile. So I don't know if I was missing something, but
yeah, David, the new feature here is if you're not already in that conversation mode with it, you can select contents in a text response, and it'll pop up on the menu an option to read that back to you.
Yeah.
So if you're in a chat with it and then you want to hear that response, you can enable that now. So it's an extension of capability, but it's not much. And I think one of the other competitors is already offering that as well. So I
Yeah.
think, like you, there's not much to say. It's pretty optional.
Yeah.
Tanya?
I gave it optional as well. I mean, I think definitely this whole area of, being able to speak to it and have the answers back, it's something that is important for users that, are disabled, can't see, right? We want to make all of this technology available to everyone. So I think it's important from the aspect of here's another LLM that is now more accessible, right, to people that have disabilities. But overall, like Adam says, so many other companies have similar things, right? I mean, if we go back to even Apple Siri, right, the ability to talk and order things with Amazon with what was that, Cortana? I got rid of it because it was driving me crazy, but that has always existed. There was one other thing that I thought was interesting. The language translation, which we know, right? A lot of these tools have it. I did try it this morning on my phone, and I was amazed at because I speak Spanish. When I spoke Spanish to it, it knew right away I didn't have an accent. So the person who read it back to me had no accent, spoke perfect Spanish. But then I changed to English and I said, hey, can you tell me this in Spanish? But I said that in English. Then the person that came back spoke Spanish with an accent. I know, that was kind of weird. It was a quick test.
Wow.
They were reading their audience.
Wow. Fantastic. All righty. So this is optional. Thank you for that. And now, Adam, we're going to turn to our next article, 5 Ways AI is Helping Reduce Supply Chain Attacks on DevOps.
Yeah, I was kind of on the fence here between optional and important. I think overall I landed on optional. It talks about a lot of places where this is implemented and where it's used in defensive measures, but I've worked for both F5 and Radware, and this is stuff that we had 2-3 years ago, right? It's algorithms and machine learning primarily. It's not large language models.
Yeah,
so there isn't a lot of real
AI.
innovation here.
Right.
It talks about 5 areas. Sorry, I'm getting an echo, or is someone else?
Oh, that was me. Sorry.
It talks about 5 areas: cloud native application protection platforms, endpoint security, threat detection, analytics, and automated patch management. But with the exception of some of the endpoint security now integrating some large language models, this is all really old news. So it's probably worth making sure people understand this is optional and not to raise any flags about it.
Well, I actually would argue for important, not because it is LLMs or not, but the amount of people, a number of people that were not implementing it or not watching for it was staggeringly small. So it seems like even though the tools are available, or this is not being watched for. So I just think we need more vigilance.
It's an important topic. Security, as we were saying, and testing are both important topics. I just don't think this article adds much to the conversation other than to say, we've been doing it, we're still doing it, it's a product, it's a puff piece, as Adam said. There's nothing new here.
All right, I'm going to land on optional, important topic, but optional for this particular article. And then now, David, I've asked you to look at the negotiation one here. I need you to be concise. We're getting toward the end here, so.
Yes, thank you for giving me the longest article in the group today.
Of course. Well, you are a writer and editor. If anyone can turn a novel into a short story, it's you.
That's right. So this was interesting. It was an interesting read. So some researchers basically tuned a system to have basically a interaction with somebody to teach them conflict resolution based on the framework that is IRP. So that is interests. I always remember the power one, and rights. Sorry, interest, rights, and power. And it did a good job at that. And I think the takeaway is that you can kind of wrap a social scientific paradigm around a model and kind of get it to perform. Excuse me, my cat, as you saw, is like around me, and now his hair is flying in my mouth, and could have implications for also how you train systems in general. I saw that a couple of you rated this important. I rated it optional. I was kind of thinking like, of course you can train a system to do this, and that it is a good use case to train employees potentially on something like this or other areas. But I went optional on it.
Yeah, I would say optional because we've generally said if it's research, it's not available, we usually give it an optional. It's an important topic. I wrote a whole article on this in my LinkedIn newsletter about the use of these large language models as mediation. A huge capability that they have that is underappreciated. Any kind of mediation between parties. It's objective. It may be stupid, but stupid is fine when you want a mediator.
Yeah, I also rated it optional because of what Tim said, but it is an important topic, and it's about negotiations and conflict resolution. So we will see more of this coming up.
Yes, and one thing I did think about was when or if we have agents acting on our behalf, I'm glad that they'll be able to
use that.
Have a nice conflict resolution strategy as they interact with each other and come to an agreement that serves both interests.
Unless someone comes up with a Machiavellian model.
Yeah, I think that's a whole different story. The machines negotiate with the machines. Only the humans need the dispassionate, empathic capabilities. The machines don't need that.
Yeah, it's that I had rated it important myself because of having been a senior executive. The idea that if I sent somebody to a model, 2/3 of the time, 67% of the time, they could de-escalate and it wouldn't come to me, and I wouldn't have to stand in between, knucklehead 1 and knucklehead 2. I thought was great, but I'm all for let's go for optional. Great, it's in the research lab, very promising in terms of simulating capabilities in organizations to move them forward. And we have one last one. Amanda is not with us. So
I can take it. It's another one, sort of like TurboTax.
Luda. Okay, another moral imperative from Luda. Go for it.
So this is creating websites. And it appears, again, I haven't tried it myself, but Wix has been able to do it before. It would create the structure. They tried to improve it with the AI chatbot. And it does create a structure, but doesn't really do a very good job at it. So again, they released a capability that maybe wasn't tested as much as it's needed. So I would put it as optional because TurboTax is enough to make the point. This will improve, and indeed, I think we will have the capability to build websites automatically with some prompts. It is just a wrong try.
Can I say 30 seconds worth, John?
30 seconds it is. Clock starting now.
I will take some umbrage at the umbrage because, Microsoft started this whole process 50 years ago, and we haven't learned, and we have supported that process of people foisting upon us completely incompetent products and using us as the test base. And that's been true for 50 years now. So we can't argue with this. This is the standard of practice in Silicon Valley since it started.
True.
We have to like it.
Just don't do it with our taxes.
I hate it. I think it's terrible and irresponsible, but we've been putting up with it. In fact, we've been giving these people billions of dollars for 50 years.
I would say, though, here, this is lower stakes, right?
Yes, it's lower stakes.
Bad.
Then,
starting off with not the greatest web framework.
It's a slippery slope. Where do you draw the line?
Let's get to the summary, hey, with our 30 seconds remaining.
I said my 30 seconds.
So our summary is what we have: essential, important, right? So to get this right, we've got the Anthropic ones are essential. The so is the TurboTax mistakes is important. ChatGPT optional. 5 ways AI is helping reduce supply chain attacks and DevOps optional. Simulating conflict optional, and Wix optional. So we have 1 essential, 1 important, and 4 optional today. Did I get that right, everybody?
Yep.
Like it.
2 essential.
Awesome. Oh, we have the summary thing. Wonderful. Well, great. Thank you all for for our efforts today. Thanks again to our sponsor, CustomGPT.ai, and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow to review what's essential, what's important, and what's optional in the world of generative AI for our AI leader. Thank you.